Have you ever wondered why some men haunt a woman's body long after they've left her life? Not the men she begged to stay, or the ones who made grand promises, but the ones she remembers in the dark. The ones her body reacts to even when her mind tells her to forget. If you think it's about looks, money, or romantic gestures, you're already lost. It's not even about sex. It's about psychological impact, imprint, intrusion, the kind of presence that doesn't knock, it leaves a scar. You see, most men approach sex like a transaction. They want to be liked. They want to perform well. They want to be validated. That mindset alone makes you forgettable. Women forget men who try to please them, but they never forget the man who penetrates their reality emotionally, psychologically, physically, all at once. You've been conditioned to believe that pleasure is what hooks a woman. It isn't. Tension is. Mystery is. The ability to unnerve her while making her feel more alive than she thought was possible. That's what burns itself into her nervous system. This is where you've been lied to. You were told to be gentle, communicative, considerate, all good things in a relationship. Yes, but absolutely irrelevant when it comes to arousal. Desire is not born in safety. It's born in polarity, in uncertainty, in the terrifying possibility that you might not need her as much as she needs you. And that's the first truth you need to absorb if you want to become the man she can't stop craving. You must stop trying to be the man she feels comfortable around. Let me be clear, this isn't about being toxic or cruel. It's about power, psychological power. You need to stop equating love with submission. Stop equating desire with approval, because the more you seek permission, the more invisible you become. Do you know what makes a woman wet before you even touch her? It's not a compliment. It's not a sweet message. It's tension. The kind of tension that comes from a man who knows his presence is a reward. A man who sees her not as a goddess to worship, but as a creature to awaken slowly, precisely, without flinching. Most men never get there. They're too scared, too desperate to be liked, too controlled by the idea of doing it right. And women can sense it. They might smile, they might even sleep with you, but they won't ache for you. They won't obsess over what it means when you go silent. They won't feel your absence as pain. You won't become an addiction, you'll be a memory, disposable, replaceable. But here's where it gets real. If you want her to crave you on a level that rewires her, you must learn to exist in the space between what she says she wants and what her body actually responds to. And this requires something very few men ever master: restraint. The kind of restraint that makes her doubt her own control. The kind that shows her without saying a word that you could take her completely, but you're choosing not to. Yet, that's what breeds obsession, not access, not attention, anticipation. Women don't fall for the man who gives them everything. They fall for the one who could, but withholds it just enough to keep her guessing, just enough to keep her chasing. And here's the part that no one wants to say out loud once a woman chases you. Her mind creates the justification. She tells herself you're special, that she's never felt this before, that she has to prove herself to you. It's all backwards rationalization, because once the mind is invested in the chase, the body follows. So stop giving yourself away too early. Don't be the guy who texts every morning. Don't be the man who asks, "Was that good for you?" Don't even be the man who rushes to undress her. Be the one who makes her undress herself slowly, awkwardly, under your gaze, wondering what you'll do next. Be the man who stares at her like he's not impressed, but curious. Be the man who can walk away after touching her because that's what will destroy her. Your indifference, your mystery, your restraint. Because women aren't addicted to sex. They're addicted to what sex makes them feel. And if you can make her feel exposed, insecure, high, powerless, desired, Undone all within the span of one look or one touch, you've done more than seduce her body. You've invaded her nervous system, you've altered her sense of reality, and that is where addiction begins. She'll never tell you this directly, but deep down, she doesn't want to be in control, not when it comes to real desire. What turns her on isn't equality. It's the unspoken power dynamic that flips her mind upside down when she senses she's no longer the one setting the pace. That's what most men miss. You keep trying to meet her where she is, emotionally, logically, respectfully. You listen, you wait, you ask, and all the while, her body is waiting for the one thing you're too afraid to give dominance. Not aggression, not abuse, but presence that takes the lead without apology. The kind of presence that says, I see you and I'm not afraid of what I see. Do you know what that does to a woman when she feels a man read her, not just her words, but her tension, her subtle shifts, her insecurities, her boundaries, and still doesn't flinch? It's rare, and because it's rare, it becomes irresistible. But that only happens when you stop performing, when you stop reacting to her emotions like they define your worth. That's what separates you from the men she forgets. Most men try to manage her moods. You don't. Most men shrink when she tests them. You stay still. You don't chase her emotions. You contain them. That containment, that psychological frame is what makes her body soften around you. Because now she doesn't have to be the one holding it all together. You've taken that role. Silently. Powerfully. But it only works if it's real. You can't fake this. You can't pretend to be calm while secretly panicking inside. She'll feel it, just like a child can feel when an adult is nervous, even when they smile. Women are biologically wired to detect emotional incongruence. So if you don't have internal control, everything you say, even if it's sexy, even if it's dominant, will feel wrong, forced, unsafe. That's when she pulls away, and you don't know why. So stop chasing lines, techniques, or strategies. This isn't about what you say. It's about who you are when she tests your boundaries. Because she will, every woman does, consciously or not. She needs to know, can this man handle me? Not just my body, but my moods, my silence, my resistance, my doubts. Most men collapse. You won't, because you'll stop making her emotions your responsibility. You'll start making your energy the focus. Do you know what happens when you stop trying to impress her and instead make her feel your self-control, your certainty, your slow intensity? She becomes unsure, curious, a little anxious. That anxiety isn't a bad thing. It's the gateway, because arousal begins when her mind loses balance, when she starts asking herself questions she can't answer. Why do I want him more than I should? Why does it turn me on when he doesn't text back right away? Why do I feel safe and nervous at the same time? That internal contradiction is the addiction, and it only happens when you master your emotional state, when you no longer need her to reassure you, when you don't care if she says yes or no, because now she's no longer in charge of your ego. That's when you become the fantasy. That's when you stop being a man she's dating and become a story she can't forget. Here's something brutal you need to accept the moment you seek approval. You've lost the polarity. The moment you say, "Do you still want me?" you've made her the leader, and no matter how physically attractive you are, her body won't respond the same way. Her attraction system shuts down the second she feels like the one leading the seduction. She might still play along, but the addiction, it's gone. You want to become the man she keeps coming back to, even when it makes no sense. Then let her feel your indifference to her validation, not as a game, not as manipulation, but as reality. Because the man who doesn't need her becomes the one she wants to earn. And that's where your power is built. Not in trying to please her, but in becoming the man who makes her question whether she's enough, a man she wants to impress, a man she fantasizes about while lying next to someone else, a man who walked away without begging, without needing to prove himself, because the truth is women don't become addicted to the man who worships them. They become addicted to the man who breaks their frame without breaking their trust. But none of this works if your life is still built around her attention. You have to be already full, emotionally, physically, socially. You have to bring her into your reality, not escape into hers. Because the moment she senses that you need her to feel like a man, you've just handed her all the power. And she will use it, sometimes gently, sometimes cruelly, but always unconsciously. Because a woman cannot sexually surrender to a man she has to emotionally support. And that's the wound no one talks about, the silent collapse that happens when a man sacrifices his instinct to be chosen. When you suppress your tension, your desire, your edge, just to be accepted. That's how men lose their spark. That's how they become safe, predictable, and eventually replaceable. Because here's the truth you were never allowed to say out loud: you want to be dominant. You want to lead. You want to be the reason she gasps, arches, trembles, and forgets how to speak. But instead of owning that, you've been shamed into apologizing for it. So you hide it. You turn your power into politeness. You act soft, thinking it makes you more lovable, but in her body, it registers as nothing. Because she doesn't want a caretaker. She wants a trigger. She wants the man who reminds her she's a woman, vulnerable, exposed, hungry, undone. And that only happens when you own your sexual nature without guilt. When you stop diluting yourself in order to be acceptable. But let's not confuse this with being reckless. This isn't about being a boy with urges. This is about being a man with control. Not the kind of control that represses, the kind that chooses. That's what melts her. That's what makes her addicted. The way you look at her and don't flinch. The way you touch her neck and say nothing. The way you withhold yourself on purpose, just to let the tension build so high she breaks first. Because once she breaks, once she reaches for you, pleads with her eyes, exhales her resistance, you own her arousal. Now you're in her nervous system. Now her body has attached your presence to pleasure. That's the blueprint of addiction. But here's the part most men can't stomach. You have to be willing to walk away, not as a tactic, as a principle. If she disrespects you, if she manipulates you, if she plays power games, you don't get emotional. You don't try harder. You vanish, without noise, without drama, without warning. That silence will hurt her more than anything you could ever say. It will confuse her, enrage her, haunt her. And if you've left an imprint, if you touched her in the way that rewired her brain, she will never fully recover from it. That's the man she'll compare every future lover to. That's the ghost that lives in the background of her next relationship. But to become that ghost, you have to stop needing her affection. You have to live from your own code. You don't show up to please her. You show up because you know what you offer is rare. Most men are desperate to be liked. You're the man she has to earn access to. And you'll know the shift the moment it happens. She stops testing you. She starts submitting. Her voice softens. Her eyes linger longer. Her body becomes warmer, more open, more reactive. She touches you more. She watches your mouth when you speak. Not because of what you said, but because of what she feels. That feeling is bigger than logic. It doesn't come from compliments. It comes from contrast. The contrast between your intensity and your calm. Between your desire and your restraint. Between the chaos she brings and the stillness you never lose. That's what gets her addicted. Not your performance in bed, not your looks, not your money, your frame, your presence, your emotional non-reactivity. The way you let her be wild without being disturbed. The way you stay in control when she's losing hers. That is a drug. And once she gets a taste, everything else becomes boring. No matter how attractive or rich the next man is, he won't feel like you. Because you didn't just arouse her, you unlocked her. You gave her permission to surrender. Not because you asked for it, but because you earned it. And once a woman surrenders at that level, not because she was broken, but because she wanted to, she never forgets who made her feel that way. Her ego might fight it. She might deny it. She might try to move on. But her body knows. Her body remembers. And every time she closes her eyes, every time she hears your name, every time another man touches her without that depth, her mind goes back to you. That's what it means to become her sexual addiction. Not by giving her more, by showing her something no one else ever dared, to what it feels like to lose control in front of a man who never does. You need to understand something fundamental. Her addiction to you isn't created in the bedroom. It's created before the bedroom. It's built in the silence between your words, in the calm certainty with which you enter a room, in the way you look at her like you already own the space she thinks she controls. That's the paradox. You don't seduce her through affection. You seduce her through stability, through tension, through the feeling that being around you strips away her usual defenses and forces her to feel something unpredictable desire without safety. And it's not about pretending to be a bad boy. That's still a performance. And performances are forgettable. What she remembers, what she craves, is authenticity, but not the watered-down version you were taught to show. Not the guy who shares his every feeling, cries on command, and asks her if she's okay after every kiss. She doesn't want a partner in emotional fragility. She wants a partner in psychological weight, a man who makes her feel like if she pushes too far, she'll be the one to fall. This is what most men never grasp. They try to give her everything emotionally, sexually, physically, thinking it will make her stay. But women don't stay because of what you give. They stay because of how they feel when they're around you. And if she feels like she's the one leading, if she feels like she can control the pace of everything including your arousal, then you are forgettable. Her body might thank you for the pleasure, but her mind will wander the second the tension dies. That's why emotional control is your greatest weapon. Not silence used to manipulate, but silence used to reveal. You say less, but you say it with your eyes. You pause longer, and the space between words pulls her in. You touch her less often, but when you do it feels deliberate, heavy, intentional. That's what makes her breath catch. That's what keeps her awake at night. Fingers running over her own skin, wondering why you and not the others are the one she can't stop thinking about. It's not because you were better in bed. It's because you disrupted her pattern. You didn't fit the mold. You didn't seek her validation. You didn't flood her with compliments or try to match her energy. Instead, you set the tone. You created the emotional gravity that pulled her in, and you never once asked for permission to do it. Because once you start leading, everything changes. She starts reacting. She adjusts her pace to match yours. She mirrors your tone, your rhythm, your intensity. And this is where the addiction deepens, not just physically, but psychologically. Now you're in her head. Now she's wondering why she feels nervous when you don't text. Why she keeps checking your stories. Why your name triggers a pulse between her thighs. That's not love. That's addiction. And it's built through contrast. You were not available on demand. You were not predictable. You were not easy to impress. But you also weren't cold or dismissive. You were just present enough to make her feel seen. Just distant enough to make her want more. That balance, that masculine tension is everything. And yes, this will scare her because most women aren't used to being affected. They're used to being the ones who affect. But you flip the script, and once that happens, she's stuck in a loop. She wants to pull away to regain control, but the pull toward you is stronger. That's how her mind justifies coming back. It's different with him. He sees something in me others don't. I can't explain it. He just feels right. No, it's not right. It's dangerous. And that's why she's drawn in. But you can't play this game if you still secretly need her to choose you. Because the second you need her, you lose her. Addiction only forms when you're the source, not her. She becomes addicted to your calm, your mystery, your emotional weight. And she'll test you to see if it's real. She'll try to provoke you, withdraw, push, flirt with others, say things just to see if you'll react. Don't. Every time you stay still, her need for your validation grows stronger. Every time you don't flinch, she starts to feel more naked, more exposed, more hooked. And this is where it becomes irreversible. You're no longer just the man she wants. You're the one she can't stop analyzing, can't stop comparing, can't stop feeling. That's what makes you unforgettable. That's what makes her addicted. And that's what most men will never understand. It's not about being her fantasy. It's about becoming her fix. Most men won't make it this far because most men can't tolerate what it takes. They want the result, her craving, her surrender, her obsession without paying the price. And the price is this: you have to be the man who needs nothing from her. Not her attention, not her affection, not her approval. You have to stop seeing women as your reward. You are the reward. Your presence, your attention, your time, your body, your control. But you've been trained to flip that. Trained to pursue, trained to prove, trained to think the more you do for her, the more she'll want you. That's why you're invisible. Because you were told your job was to qualify yourself to her. But the truth is, once you start qualifying, once you start asking, "Do you like me?" you're already beneath her. She'll use you. She'll appreciate you. She might even sleep with you. But she'll never crave you. She'll never lie awake wondering why she can't move on. She'll never stare at her phone in a panic when you stop replying, because you gave it all away before she even earned it. You think addiction is built through effort. It's not. It's built through impact, through interruption, through emotional friction. She has to feel disoriented around you, not because you're playing games, but because you aren't. You're the one man who doesn't chase her, flatter her, or try to fit into her emotional script. You're the man who stares at her and doesn't blink, who can touch her body and still walk away, who enjoys her completely but never loses himself in her chaos. She doesn't want a man who collapses into her. She wants a man she has to expand into, who challenges her, who steadies her, who shows her that no matter how pretty or powerful she is, she still wants to surrender. And when she finds that man, it rewires her. But none of this works if you're weak inside, if you don't have your own code, if you bend every time she tests you. That's why so many men try to act dominant, but it never lands because underneath the surface, they're still scared, still looking for approval, still trying to be wanted. You can't fake power. You either own your frame or you don't. And owning it means this: you stop reacting to her emotions like they're more important than your own. You stop proving yourself. You stop over-explaining. You stop texting first. You stop adjusting your behavior based on her mood. You move from principle, not approval. Because the moment she senses that you don't need her, something changes. She starts leaning in. She wants to know more. She opens up. She tries harder. And here's the kicker: the less emotionally reactive you are, the more sexually open she becomes. That's the reversal most men never see. She doesn't surrender to the man who constantly seeks her attention. She surrenders to the man who makes her earn his presence. That's where the addiction forms. When she feels like she's close but never sure. When she feels your desire but can't predict it. When she feels your control even as she loses hers. Now you're not just the guy she sleeps with. You're the guy she needs to feel whole. That's not romantic. That's neurological. That's primal. But let's be honest, most women can't handle that kind of power for long. She'll sabotage it. She'll try to provoke you, push you, break the tension just to feel safe again. And if you react, if you cave, if you chase, she wins, and the addiction dies. But if you stay calm, if you walk away without drama, without explaining, without apology, you leave a void in her system that no one else can fill. That's the cost of being unforgettable. You have to be willing to be gone, to leave without turning back, to watch her beg, cry, rage, and still not lose your center. That's when she spirals. That's when her friends say, just forget him, but she can't. That's when she calls you drunk, texts you after midnight, finds reasons to bump into you. And even if she never says it out loud, even if she swears she hates you, her body remembers you as the standard. Because you weren't kind, you weren't mean, you were beyond reach. And every man she meets after you will feel like a replica, like someone trying to play the role you wrote. And if you ever come back months, years later, it all comes rushing back. The tension, the ache, the addiction, because she never healed from it. She just buried it. That's the mark of a man who never begged, never folded, never chased. A man who let her feel him without ever needing her to feel the same. She didn't break you. She revealed what you were too afraid to protect.